Hey there, comic book friends. I'm Travis. And this is our edition of Monster Comics Reviews. This is for comics for the third week of May 2013. Okay, first off, right about, we're going to talk about All-Star Western featuring Jonah Hex. Also with Booster Gold at his side. I'm not enjoying this story very much at all. Booster Gold's kind of an idiot. He doesn't know a lot about himself, doesn't know what he can or can't do. I have a hard time buying into Hex dealing with Booster just because of how big of a nut that Booster Gold is. I actually like the character Booster Gold. I think he is a great addition to the DC Universe when he was created back in the 80s, and especially how they used him in the miniseries 52, or maxi series 52 and stuff like that. I think that he's a great character and can be used in a lot of really interesting and cool ways. Why they've introduced him into this book, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they're using it as a catalyst. Rumor has it that there's going to be a Booster Gold comic coming down the road. We'll see if that really happens. I don't know if this is what that is. If it is, if this is the way they continue to use the character, not going to be interested in the book, I don't think, because there's just really nothing. There's nothing interesting about this story, really. I mean, what's the point of it? I guess this standard bounty hunting thing that Jonah was on doesn't have any of the interest that the old Jonah Hex stories used to have before the New 52. And I can say that I'm not picking on the New 52 in any way. These are the same creators on the book, other than we get Moratat's art all the time. And I'm starting to have issues with Moratat's art. All of these women look the same. I mean, really look the same. If Ethan was here, he would be saying, oh, these women all look the same. Because they really do. I mean, other than taking one hairstyle off and putting another hairstyle on, you cannot tell these people apart one bit. And so I find that extremely uninteresting to have everyone looking the same. It's unfortunate. I mean, the men look different than each other because they're all caricatures. But the women don't. The women are all the same caricature with just, maybe different clothes on and maybe different hairstyle. Otherwise, their eyes, their noses, their mouths, everything else about them, the shape, their shapes, all look exactly the same. And I'm tired of that. Getting more and more tired of that in comics in general, but especially with this book. I'm quickly starting to lose interest in All-Star Western. The backup story in it was interesting. It's still Stormwatch stuff. That era of Stormwatch is kind of cool. Curious to see what's going to go on with that. I'm going to write this out at least through the Booster Gold storyline and see what comes after that. If whatever comes after that doesn't prove to be telling me something interesting to where I'm not reading the book and going, what is the point? I'm probably going to be done with it. I like Westerns. I like Jonah Hex. I just don't feel like we're expressing anything new here. And I say new within the last 20 issues new, not because I haven't really read. I mean, I enjoy what I have read of the Jonah Hex series before the relaunch of the reboot of all of the DC Universe. But I haven't read a lot of that, so it's not like I've read all 79 issues or whatever it was. And now I feel like we're not hearing something new. This really is just me just been reading this and feeling like I'm wanting something else. That there should be something more interesting than what we're being presented with right now. And maybe it's just my lack of excitement over this Booster Gold story that just to me seems kind of weak and dumb. And maybe it's the artist. Maybe I'm tired of the art too. I'm not 100% sure. I just know that it feels like I'm not reading something exciting. I'm reading something that I'm reading because I've liked it in the past, and waiting for something to happen. And I shouldn't be doing that. So, I'll wait until after the Booster Gold story is over with, and then see what comes next. And who knows? Maybe finally dropping that book. Okay, next we're going to talk about The Bounce, issue 1. This is an Image comic. It's written by Joe Casey, and if you've watched my my last video, the No Capes, I was jumping up and down on Joe Casey and the story that he's telling in Sex. Here it's different though. He's once again he's taking a superhero and he's kind of telling us something different potentially about that superhero. Our main character, The Bounce, his superpowers seem to be that he can kind of literally bounce off of things. He actually folds himself up into a ball and bounces, not like Bouncing Boy, but just like he's going to do a cannonball off a diving board, except he can bounce off of things. Well, he can actually bounce his hands off of things too. He encounters a supervillain called the Crush or something like that, who is killing the police chief and his family. The Bounce goes there to rescue them. Hopefully, it doesn't really work out that way, but he bounces his hands off the guy and rattles his brains pretty good. But the thing about this is our hero character seems to be a young man. I would assume college age, except he's not going to college. He's not applying himself. He's sitting in his room smoking really good marijuana out of a bong. That's our hero. I think we're going to get the fact that this hero, he goes and does a superhero gig because it's fun, it's cool, but he's not walking any moral high ground really himself either. As a matter of fact, about midway through the book, he's at a bar buying what's supposed to be the best awesome hit in the world, which he goes into a bathroom to actually do the deal, and you find out that the drug is actually this fog coming off of this other superpowered person. It seems to me that's really interesting. The other part of the story is you've got the rest of the world who doesn't seem, or at least the city, who doesn't seem to be. Superpowered people are a new thing, and so the law department, the DA and whatnot, especially with the killing of the police chief, are out to catch these costume crazies and prosecute them and take them away. From their perspective, they don't see a difference between the Bounce, who came to try and rescue him, and this other superpowered individual called the Crush, who is crushing the police chief to death. So there's some interesting stuff here. We're looks like we're going to be approaching superheroes in a different way. What if me or you got superpowers? Would we really truly be superheroes? Would we take that high ground all the way? Would we use our powers? Sure. I mean, most of us are decent people. If we could prevent somebody from being murdered and it wasn't going to cost us anything, we would go and do it. That's least amount of risk. Sure, why not? Kind of a thing. But if we had our powers, we do other things with them that maybe aren't okay. If we could figure out a way to use our powers to win the lottery, or if we could use our powers to, get the hot girl or the handsome man, would we be using our powers that way too? I think we're potentially going to get that in this book, as long as he doesn't drag it out or that sort of thing. But the first issue already gives us more than what in the other book that he's writing for Image right now, that has to do kind of with a different take on superheroes. So I think we have a potential here for it to be some really potentially interesting stuff. And I love superheroes, and so I'm really curious to have somebody address some of this other stuff about superheroes and what does that mean and what would it be like, kind of a thing. So yeah, decent first issue. Has enough interesting stuff in it. Gives us a little bit of the characters. Gives us a little bit of superpowers and whatnot. Art by David Messina looks pretty cool. So I'm on board for a few issues to see if they're really going to tell us these different types of stories, or if Joe Casey is more at ease and really can't pull the trigger on really telling us that stuff. He has the idea of wanting to do that, but not able to execute it. We'll see. We'll see. Next, we're going to talk about another issue, number 1. This is the Green Team, Teen Billionaires, DC Comics. This was actually the book I was apprehensive about when these 2 books were announced. You know, the movement and the Green Team, the idea of you know, the 1% versus the 99% book and this different thing. But I knew I wanted to get both, because if they were actually going to try and tell a 1% story and a 99% story, I wanted to see what DC and DC editorial, and I don't know if this is the same editors for both books or not, I'd be curious if it was, you know, what they were going to be trying to tell us. Because, you know, they pitched these books, advertised these books to us months and months and months before probably the books had even actually been started to be written or drawn or anything like that. Anyway, if some of you will remember, I did the Must Comic Review with Damien, Sleepy Reader 666. We weren't too enthused by the movement. I didn't care for it. There were potentially some interesting characters because how their powers were cool in it, but the book itself had many problems, in my opinion. This book, I thought completely the opposite of. And this is the book I was suspicious of. Really enjoyed it. I love Aguara's artwork. I really liked his artwork when he was doing Blue Beetle and stuff like that, so I'm happy to see him on a book. He does fresh young people really well. I think there's plenty of that in here. You get a good mix of characters. You got some Middle Eastern characters in this. The one thing I could probably pick on is that the female character, well, one of the 2 female characters that's in this, the blonde movie star, is somewhat stereotypical in her character and her approach to a lot of the stuff. Was a little one-dimensional, so we'll see where that goes. But actually, really interesting story idea. Our main character, Mo, name is Mohammed, people call him Mo. He's going to this hashtag Green Team, kind of these young kids who've got lots of money and are spending it in interesting ways on interesting advanced technology and stuff like that. He is going to meet them because at some point his father tried buying this company out from Commodore. It's a kid, his name is Commodore. They call him 64 because Commodore 64. Joke for those of us who are really old. If you're young, you probably don't get it. That's okay. To try and convince him to sell his company to Mohammed, because his dad tried buying the company at one point, and he said no. So he's hoping to impress his father, do his own thing, but impress his father by making this happen. So he goes to this kind of flash mob. Instead of being a flash mob, it's like a flash tech expo, where people show their tech, hoping to get these rich people to invest in them so they can move forward with their tech. You can see all kinds of crazy stuff on it and whatnot. It's pretty interesting. They have a conversation with Mo. You find out that Mo is actually a prince from, obviously some small nation in the Middle East, but seemingly a normal kid, otherwise a normal young man, otherwise, and he's taking pictures and posting them like on Twitter and that sort of thing while he's there, which is a huge mistake because rich and famous people shouldn't be saying where they're at while they're there because of security issues. You say that you're there after the fact, we find out. But anyway, these middle-class crazies show up. They refer to themselves as middle-class heroes or vigilantes or whatever. They're attacking these rich people because, of course, they're rich, so obviously they're bad. Find out that's really not necessarily the case. These are kids who are rich. They're trying to figure out how to spend their money to better everything, and not just to make more money. Because what's the point of just having more money when you already have billions? That just doesn't make any sense to them. So they're trying to better everything, is the technology they're looking for. But they get attacked, and we find out that this Green Team, this Commodore, and some of his buddies that are with him. He's been kind of floating the idea of this whole maybe they should be superheroes to try and better the world, kind of a thing. And it ends up at the end of it, as they're attacked by these vigilantes, that the Commodore character dons a kind of a super suit that he has problems with because he's never really used it, and has some issues, and Muhammad tries helping out, and they're left at the end of the cliffhanger of, oh my gosh, they're all caught by these crazy, God knows what they're going to do to them, vigilante people, and Commodore's got this super suit on, kind of in a face down with this vigilante, and you find out it's a big group and whatnot. But I thought it was much more interesting. The characters are more interesting, though. Like I said, there are a couple of them that were pretty one-dimensional, but still a much more cohesive thought all the way through the book as to what's going on and why. So interesting. I'm actually looking forward to seeing what happens after we deal with this initial, oh crap, how are they going to move forward with the whole thing? It'll be interesting. Some interesting characters and some interesting ideas. So yeah, that was a pretty good book as a whole. Okay, next up, Justice League issue 20, Despero's Revenge. I dig Despero. Despero's one of those characters I've always kind of liked. I like the way he looks. He looks like a freak, the third eye, the telepathy, and all that stuff. This was kind of an issue that was really all about, well, two things go on. You find out that, obviously that Batman has this closet, and in the closet he's got all these boxes with answers as to how to deal with everybody. Has this long conversation with Clark about the fact that obviously, Clark gave him the piece of kryptonite. Superman gave him the piece of kryptonite to deal with Superman in case Superman ever goes bad. Somebody needs to have this, and he trusts Bruce the most to have it and to deal with it. Awesome. I really wish they would show us some stuff that made those two trust each other that way, but whatever, that's a different thing. And he's like, look, there were all these boxes, and Superman's like, look, just because I told you to hang on to this piece of kryptonite to deal with me doesn't mean you should be making all these boxes. You shouldn't. I mean, this seems a little extreme. Why do you think of this way? Batman's like, well, I'm a pessimist. I have to think of all this to be on the safe side. I can't bank on just hope. And Superman's like, yeah, but I'm hoping all of my friends will be good. I don't want to make these kind of plans. And Batman's like, that's fine. I've made the plan for us. He even gives him, a box that's got the bat symbol on it and says, here, I expect you as my friend. I hope that this is what you do if I ever become the out-of-control monster. Of course, they don't show us what's in that box. I'd be curious to see what's in the Batman box. But he shows him the Wonder Woman box and says, this is why I'm worried about the relationship between you and Wonder Woman. If something goes wrong between the two of you or whatever, this is what I'm worried about. And he's like, well, what? Superman's like, well, what's in the box? They open the box, and the box is empty. And Batman goes, you're my answer to Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, if she goes off the deep end, you're the only thing that can handle her. You're the only one. So the two of you together can potentially cause a problem in the fact that means I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer to Wonder Woman because you're my answer to Wonder Woman. That is really interesting to me. That is some interesting. If I have, things go crazy, how's this all going to work out? And we all know, if you pay attention to the solicitations and advertisements and whatnot, Trinity War is coming. And where are all these people going to land? Are they all going to land on the same team, or are they going to land on opposite teams? It could be really, really dicey to figure that part out. So also, how this whole Despero attacking the watchtower. The watchtower is crashing down to Earth. Superman goes up and stops it. Well, while they're up on the station, Element Girl, Firestorm, and the Atom, the newest recruits, are there to try and deal with Despero, who we're told in this comic in years past they had met, and Despero was a complete badass, and the only reason they beat Despero was a last-ditch effort of Martian Manhunter, when Martian Manhunter was still part of the Justice League, shut Despero down. That's the only way they beat Despero. So how are these three new recruits going to beat him? Well, they don't do a very good job of it. Despero pretty much splits Firestorm apart into his two personalities. Element Girl can't create an element that's strong enough to really deal with it. The Atom's only answer is to shrink so small, that her brain's so small that it's hard for Despero to figure out how to deal with her, and she jumps inside his mouth basically, so she's hiding inside of him to try and deal with him. She basically invokes the name Martian Manhunter and Despero's name, and we find out basically she did it in hopes that Martian Manhunter would show up. Martian Manhunter shows up. Martian Manhunter is a complete and utter badass in this. Like the DC Universe has basically, new DC Universe has basically created Martian Manhunter to be. He is hardcore through and through. He deals mentally with Despero, shuts Despero down, tells Atom to make sure that nobody knows that he was ever there, don't mention it at all. You know, so she basically takes credit for having taken down Despero. And then by the end of it, we find out that really she is actually working for the Justice League of America. She's working for Agent Waller and Steve Trevors. So that'll be interesting to see how it works out with her being the turncoat. Because I really like the character. She's actually pretty cool. So we'll see. She begs and begs to get off of this whole thing, to not be the person, you know, not be the turncoat, not be the spot. You know, I feel like this is too much for me. I'll give you the change sizing belt, give it to somebody else. I'm done. They talk her down, tell her, "Oh, you need to do this." So, and find us out somebody who can deal with, you know, who can beat. I don't know who it was. I can't remember if it was Firestorm or if it was Elemental Girl. You know, what's the chink in her armor to deal with her or whatever, or maybe it was Firestorm. So interesting stuff. I'm liking the book more and more. More and more. It's getting much more interesting, much more dynamic. We aren't mired in all the crap that it seems like the last year we were mired in. Excuse me. So, yeah, very excited by that. The backup story in this is the Shazam story. We find out really who Black Adam is. Black Adam is not the person that we were originally told that Black Adam was. Black Adam is somebody else. Really interesting, really sinister. Now we know Black Adam is not a nice person. It's not a misguided somebody. This is somebody who's just purely out for revenge and will go to any levels to get what they need done. And Billy gets his Shazam back, and so we're at a standoff between Black Adam, who has all of Billy's friends, and Shazam, and we're going to see some serious fireworks happen. Really excited about that. They really should just make Shazam its own book again. I think hopefully would be enough people that would jump on that book and be excited by it and stuff. I know I would. I've liked it, the backup story so far. It's been, as a whole, better than the Justice League itself. So that's been pretty exciting. Anyway, so that was Justice League. Next is Justice League Dark, issue 20. We get this second part. I was suspicious about this last issue when we were shown the main bad guy. He had this headband. The headband looked awfully familiar. I think it was our first clue about what was going on. My suspect is that this was that this character was well, I won't say that because that would actually spoil the book if you haven't read it yet. Who I thought it was ended up not being that, but ended up being a relation of that, which I thought was pretty cool. The interaction between the Flash and the other Justice League Dark members, somewhat interesting. There are parts of it that I thought were a little on the rough side, but as a whole I liked it. Things get answered pretty quickly and move along. I feel like to some degree we're telling a story that I don't know if the writers are 100% invested in, waiting to get to this whole Trinity War thing. So I think they had to change their story some, the story that's being done right now, to set forth for the whole Trinity War thing that's coming up. Because I don't think originally the Justice League Dark books were going to be part of the whole Trinity War. I could be wrong, but I just doesn't feel like that was originally the case. Or at least none of the Justice League Dark characters are part of the original ads for the Trinity War that was hinted at 2 free comic book years ago. So I'm not sure. Of course, still dig the artwork in the book. Not a bad story. I'm enjoying it, but there was a lot of just kind of blah, 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 each person's, whatever nightmare kind of a thing. And then once they get the answer to it, the quick splat, splat, splat. I don't know. That still seems like a really easy trope, and it still feels like they need to explore something different. But I know they have to finish this story up. But we're going to hit the Trinity War, so I'm curious to see how these characters interact with the other real superheroes as opposed to, the super monsters that these guys are and stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, lastly, to talk about Young Avengers, issue 5, last issue of this arc. Great story as a whole. I really love these characters. I'm going to draw a blank on some of their names because I can forget them, even though I really do like them. Kid Loki, we find, is really interesting here. I don't know what the old actual adult Loki was like. It sounds to me like he got killed or was killed or something. He got put back with this this innocent kid body, hoping there'd be a change. There's actually a split personality. There's two of him kind of dealing with each other. The things on his shoulders, the good and evil versions that are kind of melting whatever's going on. I love Ms. America, Latin character. She's awesome. Of course, Kate Bishop, Hawkeye, is pretty cool. We got the space guy, which I'm drawing a blank on his name. Has a spaceship that flies with Kirby engines. The Kirby engines are awesome. That means literally the ship runs on imagination. If you think it can fly, kind of a thing. Pretty freaking awesome. And then you've got our two other characters. I like them. They're a little emo for me. That's my only issue with this book is they're a little emo, just a little too much. Certainly got nothing to do with the fact that they're a gay couple. That's cool. I'm all for that. Like I said, I just wish that they weren't quite so emo. I understand why Wicca is upset. He's basically they fixed the initial immediate part of their problem they've had up this 5 issues, but they haven't fixed the long-term thing. They have to kind of stick together to fix their long-term issue. And I understand why Wiccan is upset by this because that means he can't actually be in contact with his family right now. But I don't know. They've been kind of emo the whole thing to some degree, and that doesn't interest me so much because people who are that whiny tend to bother me. So I'm not as excited by their characters because of that. But the book as a whole, I really love it. It's got this great slice of pop cultureness to it that I think just lends itself very well to a young superhero book. And by the end of this issue, they resigned themselves to, look, we're superheroes. I guess there was a version of the Young Avengers before, and they pretty much swore off. They weren't going to be superheroes anymore because something bad happened to some of their teammates. I don't know if their teammates died or exactly what happened, but they decided they weren't going to be superheroes. And Kate, at the end of this, kind of admits the fact, well, look, how we said we weren't going to be superheroes? I've been hanging out with Clint, who is the original Hawkeye, and I've been kind of superhero, and yep. And then, Wiccan goes, yep. I guess as much as we didn't want to do this or said we weren't going to do this, I guess this is what we are. And they zap on their superhero costumes, and they have superhero costumes by the end of it, and they're going to go do some superheroics while they try to figure out a long-term solution to this hex problem that they have going on. And Ms. America is there to make sure she keeps an eye on Kid Loki because she doesn't trust Kid Loki. And our spacefaring boy who loves good rhythm and blues music is hanging on because Kate Bishop promised to teach him what hot makeout was. So it's a fun comic. It's a fun comic. It has substance, despite me saying it's this slice of pop culture, which to me really pop culture doesn't really have necessarily have a lot of substance. It's a lot of fluff and whatever. But still, really digging it. It is just a fun book. As far as if you're going to have a youth superhero book, this book captures it very well. This is the youth superhero book I've been looking for, and I'm pretty happy with that. After the dissatisfying taste I got in my mouth from the rebooted Teen Titans and that sort of thing. This has just been a fun romp, and I look forward to seeing what all these characters can get themselves into, because they're a great group. They've got lots of funny lines and lots of amusing stuff goes on with them, and I'm just really, really, really enjoying it. It's a fun book. Happy to have picked it up. Anyway, that's it for this time. I would suspect early on in the next few days I will be talking more comics, because I got my second bunch of comics, and I think this puts me on track for doing reviews the same week the books come out, even maybe. Anyway, have a great one, everybody.